Hello, everybody. My name is Abdus, co-founder of Cybersecurity Alliance Pakistan, CSAP. We're glad to be here. We want to thank you, siberX, for giving us the opportunity to speak to a lot of people on this very important topic that discusses the next generation bug bounty programs and hunting techniques. I have with me a panel of security experts, researchers, who've had the exposure, the experience to talk about this topic, and we're going to go through one by one to discuss various points. Alongside, we have Mr. Aamir Jaffrey, the chief patron, chairman of CSAP. He has been working with government earlier as DG FIA. So you know, uh, what Cybersecurity Pakistan is it's a nonprofit organization that works in various areas geographically. We have different chapters spread out for members to interact with each other. We're working on a motive to provide advisory support to different national and sectoral organizations within the region, participate in various challenges and initiatives that supports our organizations be secure and secure their data, their infrastructures overall. We've been engaged with awareness workshops where we talk to different people, we talk to end users, explaining them how is it their responsibility to secure their data. So without further ado, our topic for today is next generation bug bounty. Since we all know that today almost everyone or everything relies on technology, and definitely data pertaining to technology has become a global currency. Having said that, it's also a crown jewel that everybody relies on in this day, which is managed by using advanced and complex technologies, techniques, even to automate the stuff. A lot of our processes have been automated. They talk to each other without any human or minimal human interaction. Technologies talking to different technologies, applications talking to different applications, driving results and what so on. Using these complex and advanced technologies, uh, these have disrupted the way we used to work before uh, completely, because it has changed the whole life cycle, the ecosystem of how information technology used to provide us these services. On top of this, the post-pandemic era, the COVID-19 coronavirus has completely revamped the whole cyber threat landscapes, and with a perspective of definitely the cyber risks as well. Technology-related vulnerabilities and cyber breaches are naturally a major area of concern to almost everyone out there. As part of overall approaches, an increasing number of organizations, the public or even the private sectors, are now adopting related vulnerability management and disclosure programs as well, because it all goes hand in hand to enhance their ability to detect security issues. Most of them, unfortunately, were unstructured earlier on. There's a lot to be discussed, but since we have limited time here to discuss a few challenges and concerns, let's start with things like a puppy mill pen test. Earlier, organizations used to rely on consultants, advisors, or security experts to provide them a report saying where the flaws exist. Now, most of the people in-house or outbound or outsourced, they used to provide converted reports, run scanners, convert, and deliver the report. Now, the problem with this sort of approach is these go without validations. We need to understand a couple of things here, that these surely compromise the overall objectives and definitely the quality of the whole engagement. And these are just an attempt to submit probably compliance reports. In this way, the organizations also end up paying for something that that probably has no value or validation of any business case or even logic or business logic for that matter. Another issue is most commonly seen that many organizations avoid bug bounties, thinking of it as a public-only program where everyone can see everything, everyone has access to everything. But in next generation bug bounty approaches or programs, this is not the case. As enterprises are now rolling out private programs where hand-picked researchers are taking part in these technical assessments, privately invited, incentivized for validating the discoveries and finding these flaws, reporting it back to them. This helps them reduce their cyber risks anyway. Gartner says that by 2020, the automated and crowdsourced security testing programs or services will be employed more than 50% of the enterprises. But where does that leave us? Seems that almost half of us would have no choice. You know, 100 eyes are better than 10 eyes or one eye on your application. Now, the problem is that when mass crowd goes up to work, only a fraction of what is reported is actually what is either required or important for the stakeholders. Moreover, not every piece of technology would require the same level of attention. There are places having more eyes is helpful, but there are places where only the right expertise would make it count. Uh, you know, finally, let's talk about the bug bounty programs that go on beyond the traditional approaches. They have gained traction, which can complement the traditional bug bounty and penetration testing approaches. It can definitely widen up the view of overall scenario on various platforms. There are already implemented with multiple organizations, that are top 100, Fortune 100, Fortune 500. They already have these approaches implemented where they invite the security researchers to take part in their private programs. I would like to emphasize here that attackers need to exploit only one piece of security flaw in your infrastructure, application, and so on. It acts as a low-hanging fruit anyway. So, organization conduct previously they used to conduct penetration tests, which is an established form of technical security assessment, definitely. Typically being carried out with approaches with in-house staff or outsourced employees. While organizations must be able to defend against all these flaws, operational potential flaws, at times the constraint of security teams and the resources is still valid. So many organizations try to engage the bug bounty experts as well, or the programs or platforms that assist them in harnessing the ability for a bigger crowd to provide, their and envisage their recommendations and countermeasures for their threats that exist in their infrastructure, which also result in identifying more critical security vulnerabilities. Because, like I said, 100 eyes is better than one eye. Most organizations that are serious about their security posture run a cycle of bug bounty, traditional approaches, and penetration tests separately for various reasons. Now, the overall objectives may complement each other. However, the traditional bug bounty programs remain stranded. They have limitations and it has boundaries. For example, a few of the important things is like the SDLC integrations with various platforms where incremental developments are taking place. Another one would be converting attack vectors for other parts of the infrastructure, as well as additionally for the web applications and websites or software that you are developing. Currently, if we talk about the current platforms out there, they talk about website vulnerabilities. They talk about web application flaws. Rarely you would see a platform talking about on the infrastructure perspective. Now, coverage analysis is also significant to run these programs where you analyze what has been delivered, has already been proposed, and what has been proposed has already been covered with the adequate level of SLAs out there and mitigation sets for the flaws that we found. And continuous coverage of rapid development definitely, it goes hand in hand. It's important for next generation bug bounty programs or penetration testing approaches to set up the right metrics It's hardly when we talk about the right metrics, even the end users or stakeholders are not sure what they're expecting out of and how much of it they're expecting out of this engagement. And these should be aligned with the scope of engagements anyway. It should help ensure that all required areas have been addressed, to be honest. Lastly, before I hand it over to my panelists, there's a need to deliver a continuous, or at least at minimum, a project-based methodology-driven next generation bug bounty program. This should also be scalable in order to sidestep the operational limitations as we all go through from day to day, or traditional testing approaches for that matter. The next generation penetration testing or bug bounty approaches can easily deliver from up to 5 to 10% more confirmed vulnerabilities than what traditional approaches can give you, dramatically improving both security posture and software development best practices. So to discuss this further on in details, I have with me Shahmeer Aamir. At the age of 21, he's been, acknowledged as the top third bug bounty hunter, and he's a member who's here with us, who's going to talk about the vulnerabilities that are more concerning towards the next generation bug bounty programs. Off to you, Shahmeer. Let's start with methodology stuff. What sort of methodology do you think should be defined in order to run a successful next generation bug bounty program? Because when we talk about next generation, we want to step ahead of the traditional approaches that we've been entangled with currently. So off to you.
Thank you, Saboor, for handing the mic to me. So starting from the question that you asked, basically the responsibility for developing a methodology for, as we say, next generation bug bounty program relies mostly upon the platform that the company or the client is using to create the bug bounty program. Because the company as an individual, the concept of a responsible disclosure or a bug bounty program on an individual company level is no more a reality. You don't see different companies establishing their own bug bounty programs, having their own responsible disclosure pages now, because companies rely on different platforms to give them that talent or headcount for that bug bounty. Now we've reached an impasse where basically we've exhausted the bug bounty landscape entirely. We've utilized that entire word and the buzzword, and we've utilized that entire paradigm. Now it's time to move on. Moving on, the next generation bug bounty, as you say, would be or is something that is going to help train AI models as well as perform better scrutinization of researchers to provide companies with better and efficient resources to protect their environment. Now, when I say AI models, and this is already being done by a couple of companies, I won't name them. So what they do is when you, by training an AI model, you actually, step-by-step monitor what the researcher is doing using a VPN or using some kind of tool that you have the researcher deploy. And the AI model at the back end learns and it gains that data, gains that information, trains itself, and then applies that on real world scenarios. So there you have it, the next generation bug bounty approach in training scanners and in training applications that help protect enterprise level companies. Now then comes the part of the scrutinization. Now we're already doing scrutinization based on web, based on mobile, based on host, based on apps, and all that stuff. But this needs to be narrowed down to an extent where you can actually handpick researchers who are skilled in particular technologies or languages, and then connect them with the right programs. For example, a company whose application is written in ROR, Ruby on Rails. Now, the responsibility lies on the platform that is, creating bug bounty program for companies, actually to give that particular company a specific skilled researcher who is skilled in testing environments written in Ruby on Rails. Now, that way, there will be less noise and less false positives and less duplicate reports, and the company that is acquiring those services will only get what they paid for. So now bug bounty is not about creating something new. It's only about reducing the noise. It's only about reducing the false positives. It's only about handpicking a bunch of researchers that are skilled and putting them to the right programs. So this is like what I think that the next generation of bug bounty, how it will help train AI models and how it will, work for the betterment of scrutinization of researchers.
Correct. Correct. Now, having said that, a lot of people have a concern. They show concern how efficient or how certified these hackers are, or security researchers are. Most people talk about, because it's a paper world out there, so they talk about certifications. Now, it's not right to talk about the certification levels and certification bodies as of yet, but what do you think should be a minimum outreach criteria for organizations to assess which security research to be able to take part in this sort of engagement? What do you see as a baseline thing right now?
Well, actually, I don't think that basically bug bounty was created to with the genesis and the evolution of bug bounty was to basically get those hackers and researchers who don't have have jobs and who are not interested in doing that, and connecting them with the Fortune 500 multi-million dollar, billion-dollar companies so they can test that. Now, I don't think that as a baseline you should establish uh, uh, some sort of crossover line that if someone has to pass the certification, then they're only allowed to enter a bug bounty program. I think that's the right approach. However, I think that when doing scrutinization and when testing and examining researchers, you should in that particular phase you should identify if this researcher is capable or not. This is not something that you can do based on relying on a certification. However, at the same time, if a guy has 10 certifications who are very good, who are practically acknowledged in the industry, of course he has to have some sort of skill set. That's why he acquired those certifications, right? But at the same time, that there is any baseline certification or a requirement that someone who has OSCP or EWEPT or something like that, and they should be allowed to enter a bug bounty program. No, that's not the case. Because a straight way forward in terms of exams, there's a chance that the guy didn't play well with the examining company, or cheated or whatnot. This is but in a real time examination, when a platform is checking a researcher, when a platform is actually identifying the skill set, then you can actually handpick researchers based on the level of knowledge they have. It's said in the beginning, it's the responsibility of the platform that man programs researchers in a better way, so they can provide better services.
Right. So we have a very valid point there, Shahmeer, because if you see 60 to 70% of the researchers don't even care about having a certification under the belt anyway. They're totally out there breaking stuff, making stuff, finding flaws. So that's how they live. I'll move on to Sohaib. Since a lot of technological improvements are and enhancements, from the traditional ways we used to work, the transformation that is taking place depends on application interfaces. So when we talk about APIs, which has recently started taking a lot of traction out there in the market, before coming to that, I would like to start off to see how we can integrate the financial sector to establish a baseline security using a next generation bug bounty program. How do you think it can assist these organizations that deal with financial information, money related, or any other stuff concerning banks or insurance companies, where a lot of B2C data exists? So how do you think this can help them build a security baseline for that matter?
Mm. Thanks, Saboor. I believe that in order to ensure that the baseline security we can achieve through the next generation bug bounty platform, it has to be the part of our SDLC cycle. Okay, at the stage when the desired product is ready and is able to be finalized, then at the stage when we are running multiple tests from the UAT perspective, from the QA perspective, and obviously from the pen test perspective, there has to be the bug bounty platform that can integrate within the SDLC cycle. I think one of the most important thing that when you talk about the bug bounties, okay, so we should understand that we should not expose the platform to all of the bug bounty hunters. Okay, we should not limit to a very limited number of bug bounty hunters based on their expertise. Like that depends if we are developing a mobile app, we are developing a web application, or whatever service we are going to be developed within our organization. Okay, so we should limit the number of bug bounty hunters who are trying to assess or report the vulnerabilities to us. When we talk about, like this happens when we talk about the financial application, obviously you don't want to publish your financial application to all the bug bounty hunters out there. You want to limit the number of people just to ensure the confidentiality. Okay, and second most important thing is that it's obvious, and like it's a behavior of a bug bounty hunter that they work on their mood. Okay, so it's better to when you have a selected community of bug bounty hunters through a platform, tie them within an agreement or SLA. Okay, so that they can put best effort, because once they're in an agreement or once they're in an SLA, they would try to report one of the best results they could. Otherwise, if you don't try to involve them in a like a contract or SLA, then definitely they're going to work on their mood. Like if they're not in the mood to work, then definitely they would not deliver the best results. So first thing first, that it has to be the part of SDLC. Limited number of bug bounty hunters based on their expertise should be selected. And one more example I would like to quote about Alibaba Group. That is one of the known group in the world. It has a subsidiary. So that subsidiary did what, that they visited some of the top bug bounties platform in the world. Okay, from there they selected based on the hackers and the bug bounty hunters profile, like what are their expertise, how many bugs they have reported in the web application, mobile application, and they selected some of the bug bounty hunters. They contacted them and they tried to do an SLA with them for number of for a number of couple of years and couple of months. Up till then, their application is being developed to find out the bugs and report it to them. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. I believe, you see, when we talk about applications, most of the application standards out there or models, they talk about how to secure these applications. But when we talk about APIs, that's more of a concern to every stakeholder, business owner right now, because they have automated processes defined where applications, for example, are talking to different applications. They're authenticating each other. They're flowing data through each other with minimal or no human intervention. So when we talk about these, APIs, what do you think? Because you have a lot of experience in the financial sector. What are the most overlooked security issues out there, in financial industry these days, that you think should be addressed when we're talking about, dealing with APIs, for that matter?
as far as the development of application is concerned, in this generation, most of the applications are being developed through frameworks. Okay, so when we come to framework, most of the security issues are already addressed in many frameworks, like SQL injection. You won't be able to find SQL injection easily in many world top frameworks, because there are huge number of communities working on them and reporting the vulnerabilities to specifically relating to those frameworks. Okay, so like most common issues are already addressed in many frameworks. So if a company or a bank or any organization is developing their application based on the framework, so most like common issues that I have seen like is like the business logic attacks. Okay, so maybe most of the cases that they have not defined the work, they actually, when they define the workflow, there is some way that attacker finds a way to bypass that workflow. Okay, so the business logic, the workflow has to be taken into more consideration. Like only the thing that are expected to happen, that should only happen. Other than those expectations, nothing should happen. Okay, and another thing is, apart from this, I have seen that most of the misconfigurations are being overlooked, like server level misconfigurations, web server and application level misconfiguration, that leads to many potential vulnerabilities.
Exactly. So to sum it up, you're saying that mostly the business logics attacks define workflows that are bypassed most of the time, server
Yeah,
and application level misconfigurations and all that,
yeah,
especially considering the APIs as well. Okay. Asif,
definitely.
if you
One
can,
more thing,
yeah,
sorry to cut it off.
yeah,
One more thing I would like to add up. I'm not saying that one wouldn't be able to find the SQL injection in modern applications,
no, for
but
sure.
as I stated earlier, that since the frameworks are being introduced, so those kind of attacks like SQL injection accesses are being
Taken
maintained
care of.
and like covered through the frameworks.
Exactly. Exactly. Moving on to the modern APIs, Asif, if you can hear me, how do you think organizations can benefit with using next generation penetration testing or bug bounties, for that matter, to secure their modern APIs uh, that organizations are using to deploy their applications?
Right. So thank you, Saboor. Thank you very much. So I think the right now, the era in which we are living, and the mostly applications are built through the APIs. So APIs, like as we right now, we can say that it's the backbone of all the applications, where we see mainly the major organizations are relying on the applications and provide the interfaces to integrate with other institutes. Like if I say in the local industry, we have the banks, we have the fintechs, they are all talking with each other through the expose APIs. So this API kind of interface is the mainly the backbone of the applications to have the interaction with all between institutes, between applications, and provide the interface to the customers where they can enjoy or they can feel a single point of the interaction for the financial, for the social engineering, social network sites, or other institutes. So this area of the API is in a modern language the main kind of component for each application development. So right now, I think in major part of the applications here, as we see, that the APIs are built quite frequently in the institutes, and rapidly they are developing the functionality through the APIs. But unfortunately, the practices being evolved with respect to the API are not up to the mark, as we have seen that the like web applications or general infrastructure, like we have scanners, we have the pen testers, they have the skill sets, and they have expertise from like a decade. They are performing the assessment of such kind of applications. But as we see that the API part is quite relevantly, although its underlying platform is like the same as the web application, we can say that, but by nature, they are completely different with respect to security controls when we talk about the APIs. Like in general, if we see that the APIs, a single API could lead to
Multiple
a
attacks.
surface area where multiple institutes can be impacted from a compromise of the single API. So the landscape of the overall API with respect to a single application is much broader, and its impact and can lead towards multiple compromise of the institutes. So with respect to the next generation bug bounty and how we can improve the assessment of the APIs, so I believe, as Sohaib and Shoaib said, I will complement their remarks that we need to incorporate our assessment, security assessment programs in the software development life cycles for complete improvement, and it should be assessed before any release. But unfortunately, with respect to developments, we have a rapid development life cycles. We have adopted the agile methodologies and all that. But on the other side, if we say like with respect to the application assessment or the assessment before go live, so we face hardly, we have the limited set of resources and the skill set. They are specialized for the API assessment. So it's quite hard to have a skill set on to assess APIs before release on each release cycle. Mostly the banks or institutes or, rely on a periodic risk assessment cycles where they go for the pen test and they wait for the next cycle to complete and identify the gaps. So through the bug bounty programs, we can have the skill set from the globe where they can participate in the software development life cycles. They adopt the proper skill set and they assess accordingly. And it must be assessed before moving into the production. So like as we said, security assessment is not like a detective kind of mechanism. It should be a proactive approach where we should go through all the security assessment before moving into the production.
Exactly.
So I think
you've raised a very good and important point here, since basically, you know, multiple applications may be talking to one base application, which is like a main portal for all this intranet, you know, or public internet. So these API providers, what do you think, to give a high level summary of what their main responsibilities should include, because these are the people who might be the reason for a pivot attack on the whole network or the whole cluster.
Right. So with respect to responsibility, if we talk about, I think responsibility lies with all levels of the, with all the stakeholders, from the consumers, from the customers, correct, and from with respect to API providers. But mainly, as we say, that the API provider is the main point of contact. When we say that some kind of APIs are compromised, people do not talk about how it would be, it was implemented at the consumer end, it would be consumed by the client application and all that. So the main responsibility lies with the API providers. They should ensure that the APIs are being released. Before releasing, they are properly tested, and they enforce at least basic set of controls that can be implemented on their API part. Like there must be an appropriate authentication authorization mechanism. There should be an appropriate logging mechanism. They have proper SSL encryption kind of elements and enforced on their on the API gateways and all that. So other part where the customers, consumers consume these APIs, there are parts that it should comply with the requirements, but mainly the API provider should enforce the security controls at the API level or the gateway level, where these APIs are protected from malicious kind of activities, and they have the proper mechanism on that.
Asif, you know, there has been, since we talk to many enterprise organizations on a daily basis, there has been a rising concern from enterprises where they do not want or they do not feel comfortable providing a complete access to their complete set of modules or application. So in that perspective, what do you suggest? You know, how can we specifically provide access to the APIs and let the other part of security team deal with the other clusters of this assessment, like databases and client-based attacks? What do you think is the feasibility to do this in the first place?
Yeah, I think this like of the distribution, like the APIs are being assigned to the multiple teams, and the other part is assigned to the different team. I think it's quite a bit of challenge that if there is a partial visibility or incomplete access of the overall environment of the solution, it may lead to have a partial kind of visibility to the individual teams. So I believe every assessor or the team has the complete visibility of the overall environment and the end-to-end application workflows, where they can assess the application, where they can assess the APIs and associated control. So if we limit the exposure of the APIs to a certain set of experts, and rest remains disclosed, or rest remains are not accessible to them, I believe it be a challenge, or it could be a partial results. So as a hacker, if we see they do not distinguish between the APIs and the application, when they identify the gap in the application, they go through the whole end-to-end process, where they may identify one point of compromise from initial indicator from one side, and then they launch the attack, and leads toward the other compromise of the component of the elements. It may be the API, or it may be a front-end application, or it may be the database. So what is my recommendation? I believe the assessor should have the visibility of end-to-end flow of the application, and all part of the application to have the comprehensive assessment results with the organization. So
exactly. So we should have a complete cycle of assessments done to ensure all the vectors have been addressed at least. Yeah. Coming back to you, Sohaib, since you're also from the financial sector and you have more than 12 years experience dealing with these sort of engagements, my question would be, like many other people that currently have concerns on APIs, for example, what are the regulatory guidelines or any regulations in the region that talk about API security in specific, precisely for the application interfaces, or even best practices aligned with OWASP? We know OWASP has released very recently the top 10, where one of our members, Abid Khan, was part of the whole research cycle, and he has been acknowledged in their new standard. But however, I would like to see what local regulators are talking about in this area, in this zone, to see if they realize all these threats exist out there.
First of all, Saboor, I would like to compliment Mr. Asif, because a lot of things he has already cleared regarding the API security relating to the best practices. But one thing that I would be very precise and general about it, that in case that if we want to secure our APIs endpoint, okay, following one of the best practices, because right now I haven't seen any proper API regulatory guidelines in specifically in many of the different regions. Okay, I haven't seen it. I think it has to be there. Okay, although there are many best practices, so considering the best practices, I would be general, like if we control three things to our API. Okay, like number one thing is authentications to the API. Second, authorizations, like who is supposed to do what. Okay, and the third thing is the accountability, like what person is doing what, and the accountability, like the logging of the actions people are doing using the APIs. So it could be the like in high level the reasons for the best practices that we can follow. And the second thing that I would be general. Okay, it could be achieved like using the API proxy gateways, and it works like separating the front end with the back ends, and applying the essential security and demand steering and with the convention interpretation. So yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it would pertain to multiple other regulations out there, When they talk about, because you see APIs would be dealing with data pertaining to the customers like myself or enterprise business to business. In any case, a breach of that information might relate to something like California Privacy Act or GDPR for that matter. So there might be some sort of regulatory or financial implications, not addressing those. Shahmeer, coming back to you before we try to conclude this session, since we have limited time, a lot of people ask where to start with bug bounties. What is my first step? I'm stepping into cybersecurity. You've been a kid, 21-year-old, 20-year-old, who's been dealing with different sort of assessment reports, talking to different vendors, talking to different business owners, trying to convince them how to fix them, remediate these risks. What do you think is going to be the first step? I also see one of the users here raising a question: how do I start with bug bounty? I would, rather you talk about this because you started at a very initial stage of bug bounties as well. Shami, we cannot hear you.
I was just I was actually answering a couple of questions in the chat as well.
Yeah,
so
I can see that. You can be vocal about it so everyone can listen to us.
Yeah, so basically, so my journey, basically, I was, if people don't know me, I was never into cybersecurity. I was never even into coding. I started as an electronics engineer, and I started this as a hobby. And still, I can safely say that I can't code. I mean, I can't code as a coder or a developer would. I can't code like them. So keeping that in mind. When you say how to get started, basically, number one, you should basically read all the relevant materials that is present on the web. Because if you were to get started 5 years ago or 3 years ago, when I started, there was the material that was available on the web is now outdated. So you have to learn and from the recent material that is present, which includes blog posts of different people, which includes which includes books. I also mentioned, one of my books that I've written. It's called Bug Bounty Essentials. You can go online and you can read that. That'll give you a baseline of what bug bounty is. I've covered a lot of aspects in there. There are a lot of other books. There are a lot of other books. You can. It's going into basically. If you want the short and the quick way in, you have to learn web app security. Like every company that has a bug bounty program has the bug bounty program on their web app. So you have to get started. You read OWASP, you read a couple of books, you read blog posts, and you're updated. You practice. One thing that you need to take into account is that you have to be patient, first of all, because programs are crowded. I mean, you have no idea the programs that have private or public or whatever, they are crowded. You need to be patient, and you need to be quick, and you need to be creative. These are the three things that you need to keep in mind, because low-hanging fruits, the ones that scanners detect, XSS or CSRF or whatever, these are not gonna get you big bounties. I mean, business logic vulnerabilities, these are the ones that that are going to get you some money, that are going to get you quick amounts and stuff like that. But if I were to give you a couple of pointers, like what how to get started and whatnot, I would give you learn web app security, which is number one. Number two is go ahead and read about OWASP's latest testing guide, then read about a couple of books. And on HackerOne or on BugCrowd, there's a list of top 100 hunters. Go on their profiles and read their blog posts. There's a wealth of information that you're going to get from there. Not only bug bounty hunters, creativity is the key here. So yeah, these are a couple of my pointers on people that are asking how to get started and what to do.
Being patient is the main key. I've had to add on top to your very valuable information, Shahmeer. I've been acknowledged in Hall of Fame with a couple of vendors like SAP back 2 years ago. Uh, so I had to work with them 6 to 7 months to ensure that we cover all the steps we were able to recreate on their live production systems and so on, and help them close these and mitigate these risks, whereas they were able to come up with global security patches. Now, a lot of people need to understand that who ask these questions, they need to understand there are client related attacks that happen on your system where your systems are vulnerable. They should be patched up. It's not completely the server side that should be secure. Let's say you're trying to connect to your bank online and your mobile phone is unpatched. It has various set of vulnerabilities, exploits that exist on your device. So in that matter, you would be taking that risk. You will be letting the hackers flow into the backend system using your device. And these are very huge topics, and we can talk for hours here. I think each one of us can spend hours here talking about it. So yeah, I mean, like Shahmeer said, there's a wealth of information that bug bounty cyber shots or celebrities that we call, they share on their blogs to showcase what weaknesses they were able to cover and how. So you can define your own methodologies going on with time. That's the beauty of next generation, because it's still evolving. It's still developing how people are going to take traction towards making their programs. It goes, by the way, hand in hand with the disclosure programs that enterprises have. So, having said that, it takes a very professional approach towards finding the flaws.
Yeah.
Last but not least, we have Amar Jaffrey here. He's the chief patron for CSAP. We're lucky to have his valuable time. If he can share from his valuable inputs and guide us how things are proceeding in Pakistan when we talk about these related technological enhancements, when we talk about cyber defense, cyber offense. Would love for you to share us your feedback and the updates from that region. Marcel, we cannot hear you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I would like to thank the siberX Canada, especially the Farouk Dahar, to give us the opportunity to present us here. Secondly, I would like to thank the participants who are there for the last, I think, couple of minutes. It is very late night in Pakistan. I think I would like to start from what Shahmeer said. It's the era of artificial intelligence. So AI is going to play on both sides, keep us secure and keep us unsecure. I think Shoaib is right. The software were originally not designed to bring security into it, but now the system, the software development life cycle should include the basic security ingredients into it, so that when these are applicable, it makes us secure. Farouk sir, thank you very much. So what I'm trying to say is that internet was there, internet is here, internet is going to stay. I think we cannot even think about now. It's like think about water and air now. So we have to make it secure. We have no choices. But the recent transformation in the last 2 years have changed the entire paradigm. Initially, we had structured data. Today, we are operating in unstructured data. The data from IoTs, the data from sensors, data is stemming out from everything we can talk about. So our defense mechanism has to be aligned with that. To my understanding, we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this cycle has to evolve gradually. There is no 100% security. I think back in 83, we invited Bruce Sher to Pakistan when I was serving in FIA. He said one thing very important at that time. He said it in 1983. Somebody asked a question, married Islamabad. There was the best security. He said 2 inches of air, don't connect. Then you are secure. I had a chance to work with Sean Harris and so many people. So every every expert of that particular time was very clear about it, that it is an evolving field and we have to face it. Going further, I would just like to say that we need to work together. Unless we do not understand the power of working together, when I say together, it don't mean anything like in Pakistan. We have to work together globally. That's why the Cyber Security Alliance of Pakistan has been conceived and thought. The original idea behind CSAP was, original idea, I think 1.5 years before, that an effort should be made to bring everybody on board. Like cyber experts sitting outside Pakistan, they're Pakistanis. The people in government of Pakistan, the people in different heading the organizations. And I'm very happy to see a very, very engaging involvement by all of them. And that's what the spirit, when I basically conceived this idea. I had the experience of PISA. I think PISA was established in 2005. And the best people of that time were in PISA. But we had problem in PISA because PISA was focused only on cyber building the capacities. Now, we are thinking about going into some sort of strategic alliances with government, with organizations, with universities and everything. So in the end, I would just like to thank everybody because the panelists have covered so much of technological stuff that I don't feel any requirement to talk on the topics they have. But when they were talking, I just reminded something in my mind. I think back in 81 or 82, I don't remember. I did a course on ethical hacking by IBM at that time. You know, that was 6 weeks course. And Farooq, you know what they asked for us in the end? I was, at that time, I was working with the army. In the end, give us a signature that you will not do anything. Like they have oath from the doctors, unethical. I don't know. Now everybody is free to learn the skills of hacking. So it's a very worrying part from my side. I have been to both sides, in the policing side and now on the advocacy side. I can see that there's a need for bringing in force some standards of even learning this. You know, the dark web was there, is there, and would be there even after COVID. It will be there in a lot of force. Now they are into our homes now. They can destroy the relationship of governments even. They can destroy the relationship of organizations even. So we all understand these things very well. In the end, Farooq, I will again thank you for giving us the opportunity, especially CSAP Forum. And when I conceive of all these things, I look toward all young people like you, like Saboor, like everybody who is listening right now, to give us the best possible, I say the best possible advice to make CSAP a forum on which all of us should be proud of some years to come. I thank you all. And now it's over to Farooq if you have anything.
So I would like to add up, Aamir Saab, because see, our teams are connected in various regions, and we're already talking to multiple organizations, trying to showcase them the benefits of having the next generation penetration testing programs in place, where our teams can support them. So, you know, leaders like yourself would play a very significant role in rolling this out to different organizations, talking to different sectors on national level, so that, you know, it makes more sense to them to listen to someone who has already spent his life securing organizations in multiple various capacities. Yeah. Over to you, Farooq.
Okay, thank you guys. I won't take long because we are over.
Next session.
Next time, and my next session starts.
Overstate.
Yeah, I will just take 30 seconds. Guys, all I can tell you right now is that I feel proud as a Pakistani today. The reason for that is that Shahmeer, I can tell you, Shahmeer, I interact with HackerOne on a monthly basis. And you are amongst some of the bug bounty hunters out there who are making our country proud. We live in an application-driven world, and securing APIs and having more bug bounty hunting programs in large tech companies is the direction to go. I feel really happy, really satisfied. All the things which you guys spoke about, having best practices, regulations, and of course, Sohaib and Asif also raised some really good points about having more proactive measures in organizations and having privacy and security by design. making sure that all these things are there on a more proactive basis. All these are things which resonate with us and in line with the best practices. I'm really happy that you guys did this session today, and we are going to be inviting CSAP Pakistan and FISA to other events. And guys, thank you again. Thank you again. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure to be there, Farooq. Thank you, CyberX.